Hello! Welcome to this video. My name's Dan, aka Lucid, and today I'm going to be breaking down the best albums of the year. Let's go! So, last Tuesday, I'm filming it right after because I wasn't going to get dressed up again. Last Tuesday, we discussed the best songs of the year. So this is part two. Part two of the Weepy Awards is dedicated solely to albums. Rather than just a top 10 list, I've got 10 different categories as to the different aspects of these albums that I loved the most. So, yes. And then, of course, I will be naming my runner-up album of the year and my top album of the year. As always, these choices are subjective. These are my personal favourites. There are a lot of albums I haven't listened to, and if you have any ideas for what you think the best albums of the year are for all these different categories, then make sure to comment below. Also, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and like this video if you like it, so it helps me in the algorithm. Boom. This is the first annual Weepy Awards. If this is like one of the first videos you're checking out of my channel, make sure to go and check my reactions. I like to cry a lot. So I thought, what better name than to call my my awards of the year than the Weepies, because honestly the best albums that I've listened to are the ones that I cried during. So without further ado, let's get to the video. So as you can probably tell, right now I'm not actually dressed up all nice, and that's because I had to film this quick little edit. I'll get back to the main video in just a second. So I filmed this video last Tuesday on the 8th of December, and then good old Tay-Tay, Taylor Swift lover, she decided that she'd drop a brand new album at the most inopportune time for all my plans and ruined everything. So yeah, this upcoming video won't actually feature Evermore, the brand new album, but I thought that I would bestow upon Taylor Swift a very unique Weepy award, and this is the WTF award for how dare you release this album after I'd already recorded all the footage. Yeah, I mean, this album, like, I'm still fresh on it. Like, just like Folklore, it kind of told these beautiful stories and was just such another special moment. I couldn't believe that she'd managed to actually do it again, you know? In the same year. Had it been released a bit earlier, it would 100% be heavily featured in this video. So I'm giving this album a special commendation for being just an absolutely brilliantly written, gorgeous, moving album that was so special and had some really, really beautiful moments and some really clever moments and some really hilarious moments. So yeah, special award goes to Evermore. Now let's go back to the main video. So the first category is Best Songwriting of the Year. So this is an album that really is the best lyrically and musically in a way that tells a convincing story. And for me, that album is Folklore. So Taylor Swift released this lockdown album, and it was just such a moment for everybody, right? It was such a big surprise. But like, having not really listened to Taylor Swift much before, the thing that really got to me was just how brilliant she is a storyteller. Every single song was like a little world that I got to peer into, and it was just so special, and but lyrically it was so complex and so beautiful, and so deep. Like, every time I listened to the songs, I would find out more. You could dig in. Then she did the Folklore documentary. Check out my reaction. The Long Pond studio sessions, where they talked about all the meanings behind all the different songs, and there were even more layers to the songwriting. I just thought it was just so well written. So convincingly written, and she also wrote so many songs from different perspectives, and I think that really highlights her as such a master storyteller. Like, there was no other option for me in terms of the best songwriting ability of the year. Had to go to Taylor Swift for Folklore. Next, the Weepy Award for Best Vocal Performance on an Album of the Year is Lianne La Havas for Lianne La Havas. So you might not have heard of Lianne La Havas before. I mean, you might have. She's fairly popular, but she's one of those artists that a lot of people I speak to want music recommendations, and I always go to Lianne La Havas because her voice is so beautiful. She knows how to use it. She's a brilliant songwriter as well, but for me, her latest album, there were just so many moments of just absolute vocal brilliance on there. But the thing about her is that she doesn't show off her vocal ability. It's not like a Christina Aguilera where she just does runs all over the place just for the sake of it. She knows how to use it in an effective way. And just her singing quietly and softly is just so beautiful, but she uses it like in tandem with the story that she's telling. She only really reaches full voice maybe like a few times on the whole album. Throughout the album, it has like lows and highs and everything in between, and everything is beautiful. And for me, it's like vocally got to be the best album of the year. I love it, love it, love it. If you haven't checked her out, she's beautiful, amazing singer. She, like, some of my favorite songs of all time are by her. Yeah, and she's a brilliant songwriter too. And the next Weepy award is for the most inventive album of the year. So this is an album that utilizes everything they have to offer and uses instruments and production in a way that signifies something unique and something I haven't heard before. And for me, that album this year was Women in Music Part 3 by Haim. So I've heard Haim before. I've listened to a bunch of their songs. They've got some really catchy tunes. The three sisters as a band, they really know instruments. They are the kind of people who just pick up and play and know how to use an instrument. But they get every single bit of mileage out of all their instruments and even all the non-instruments. Like, it's so inventive in the way that it sounds so grounded and so kind of rustic, kind of girls next door, but also so different and unique at the same time. They're not showing off how inventive they've been with their production. It just really feels that they are really curious musicians who are perfectionists and will just throw everything against the wall and see what sticks. So the most inventive album of the year for me had to be Women in Music Part 3. The next award goes to the best Boptastic album of the year. So this is the album that had the most catchy, boppy tunes. I decided in the end to pick Dua Lipa's Future Nostalgia. This album, it just had so many bangers. Honestly, like, that's probably like the simplest way to put it. It just had loads and loads of bangers. Don't Start Now, Levitating, Break My Heart. There's just so many songs on that album that are just chart-worthy and complete bops. And it was great. So the next category is the best concept of the year. So I like to talk my friends' ears off about music as I like to talk your ears off about music. And one of the things that my best friends take the piss out of me for is the word concept. So this award goes for the overall concept of an album. So there's so much more that goes into albums beyond the music. You know, there's the fashion, there's the videos, there's the imagery, there's the social media campaigns, there's the how the album has a central focus and all of the songwriting revolves around that focus. And for me, all of those things put together is the concept. So the best concept of the year for me goes to Lady Gaga for Chromatica. So, like, if you've been following Lady Gaga's output this year, she's done 3 music videos, all of which take place on planet Chromatica, which is a planet of healing that she came up with in her head when she was healing from trauma. But it's just so fully formed, like even up to the point where when she did her VMAs performance, everything was born of this world, of this planet, with its unique imagery and the pink and the green and the kind of the kindness punks. It was like an aesthetic that really ran between every single song, the album cover, all of the pictures, all of the fashion. But it also ran into the songs themselves because they all belong in this place in her head, which is Planet Chromatica. And the concept of the album is a place for healing. And the song really chronicles Lady Gaga's journey towards finding a healing place and dancing through the pain. And every single song feels tight and it feels concise and it feels like it all belongs within that concept. So it had to go to Lady Gaga for that. There are a few other albums that had kind of concepts, but not ones that were so fleshed out and so deep and so all-encompassing, from everything to social media to the Chromatica Oreos that she's just announced. Like, honestly, like, on every single level, it's all thought out, and that's brilliant. So the next award is for the most 2020 album of the year. So this award goes to an album that has really summed up what it is to be a human in 2020, which is, COVID, surviving through a pandemic and making art in a pandemic. And that album is Folklore. So this is the second award for Folklore, and for me it had to be the most 2020 album because she wrote it all during lockdown when she had to write it like in her cupboard, in the Kitty Studios, with the cats on the bed behind her. And she wrote everything from scratch. She didn't even plan to write it. It just came out of her being in lockdown and becoming more introspective and writing this album. Mentally, I think that's a place that a lot of us have been this year, in lockdowns and faced with like this terrifying pandemic. A lot of us have been in our own heads, kind of figuring out what's going on. And I think that's why this album is the most 2020 album of the year, because it was like solely born from the pandemic and reaction to the pandemic. And the best way it was put was on Taylor's documentary, where she said, I think everybody just needed a good cry. And honestly, that is what makes it the most 2020 album of the year. It came out like, and everybody just needed a good cry. Everybody needed to get deep and to get sad, just to get it out there. And this album was the album that did that for us. So the next award, the next Weepy, is for biggest surprise of the year. So this is the album that I wasn't expecting to like. I hadn't really listened to this artist much seriously before this point. This album is Plastic Hearts by Miley Cyrus. I was hoping that Midnight Sky wasn't going to be the only good song on the album, and I was not disappointed. Honestly, what I found was an album of such emotional depth and discovery and beauty and uniqueness, and like I was so surprised with how much I loved this album. Yeah, there were a few albums that surprised me in the year, but if this time last year you'd have asked me like, what's one of your favourite albums of the year, and I said Miley Cyrus, I would have laughed, because like I hadn't really taken her that seriously up to that point. So yeah, so it was a massive surprise for me, and I'm so excited to see what I've missed with Miley as well. Okay, so we're into the last 3 awards of the evening. I should have done like cards and stuff. I'll do that next year. And this is a very special Weepy award because it is the Weepy for Weepiest Album of the Year. So this is the album that made me cry the most, that made me saddest, that really was the biggest tearjerker. And I mean, there were a lot of contenders. I cried at Positions, I cried at Chromatica, I cried at Folklore. I mean, I could have given it to any of those. But for me, the one that encapsulated the weepiestness, self-reflection and sadness had to be Love Goes by the wonderful Sam Smith. Like, some of these songs were so sad that I was quite concerned for Sam's mental health. Oh, I mean, I'm so glad that the album had like a bit of an uptick in happiness at the end, because like so much of it seemed so messy and so sad. There's a bit in Love Goes where the piano was just playing and I was just like, I think that an album that can make you cry from just the piano has to be the biggest Weepy of the year. So the biggest tearjerker, the biggest cry, had to go to Sam Smith. As probably most years, it'd probably go to Sam Smith, let's be honest. Now, we're on to the big ones. So, best album of the year. I mean, you might have a few guesses. There were some good albums this year. So, first is the runner-up. So, drum roll, please. The runner-up for best album of the year is Taylor Swift for Folklore. I know, a lot of you might be disappointed that it's not on the top spot, and I was, like, so torn between this and the top spot, but, like, my heart overtook my head, and I will talk to you about what the top album, you probably already know what it is, but Folklore, let's talk about Folklore, because, honestly, like, I've already talked about the songwriting, I've already talked about how important it was for the year, but I think more importantly, for me, it kicked off like this discovery of this beautiful artist. If you've been following my channel so far, so many of my videos have been Taylor Swift discovery videos, because I hadn't really given her a chance before this year. And it feels like in 2020 to be discovering Taylor Swift for the first time, it feels like a unique circumstance. And I'm so glad that Folklore was the album that kicked it off. And it was just so beautiful. It's so well written, as I said, and it's so unique, and like it's so different because it tells stories from different perspectives and everything, and it's just, I don't know, there's just so much about it that it's just, I could just go on for days about all the individual, I mean I have, about how emotionally evocative it is, how deep it is. I could listen to it a million times and still not fully understand all the intricacies. It doesn't grow old, it's beautiful, it's just amazing. I like gushing about how brilliant this album is. But it's only number 2, because there is one other album this year that did all of that, but also was emotionally a moment in my life. My album of the year goes to... Have I built the tension up enough yet? I don't think I have. Goes to Chromatica. Lady Gaga, Chromatica. Of course, was there going to be anything else? It was almost... Honestly, it was so close between this and Folklore. I spent like the last 2 weeks trying to like decide whether I was going to put this or Folklore as my best album of the year. But it had to be Lady Gaga, because Lady Gaga is a really, really special artist for me in terms of my growth as an artist myself, but also my personal life. I went to see her for the first time this time last year, and it was life-changing, amazing moment. And then she released this album that from start to finish was inventive, it was unique. As I said, the concept of the album was all-encompassing and incredible. The songs are deep and emotionally rich and well-written, but without sacrificing the dance aesthetic, the club vibe, the chart worthiness. There's just so many things I could say about this album. The production is amazing. It's so interesting and different, and there's like so many moments of surprise throughout the album, but it's never pretentious. And there are some incredibly special moments for me emotionally throughout that album. Hearing the lyric, "This is the dance floor I fought for," from Free Woman was just... It unlocked something in me. And The Sign from Above, the way that that song builds with all the rain in the background and those like stark lyrics of "When I was young I prayed for lightning." It's just so evocative and powerful, and the whole album continues like that. But listening from start to finish, it tells a story that doesn't feel overly long and rambly. It feels like a concise piece of work, like they trimmed all the fat, but it grows. Like it starts in a place and it tells a story. It moves into darkness through the Chromatica interludes, which are amazingly done, beautiful, and only add to this like tension and beauty throughout the album. That tension grows and the story progresses. She goes to somewhere dark and then she hears the sign from above, and it changes everything for her. And as you follow that story throughout the album, it's just the most satisfying thing. I just think it's just so brilliant. And of course, like, this album was so important for my channel too. So it was so special for me emotionally, personally, but also I found something with this YouTube channel. I'm finding some success here. Like, I've got some really exciting things to share with you in the near future. I never imagined at the beginning of this year that I would be a YouTuber. I don't even really think of myself as a YouTuber, but do you know what I mean? I never thought that I'd find success on YouTube, but I've connected with so many people and I've managed to like break all the expectations I had of doing YouTube. Like, I made it to 1,000 subscribers in 5 months. I never thought that would happen. And so much of that is obviously down to you guys watching, but the first thing that really put my face in front of your screens was my reaction to Chromatica. And so I think that this album is going to go on to be a special moment for me in terms of my career, a pivotal moment in terms of my career, and a pivotal moment for my love of music that really reawakened exactly why I love music and why I love talking about music and why I love to share that with you guys and to share that with people, everybody I meet. This might end up being like the album of the decade because it's just so, on so many levels, it's just so special to me. And so I had to put it as my top album of the year. Yes, I know I gave top song of the year and top album of the year to Lady Gaga. I know, I'm an obsessive. And if you saw my Spotify, it was my Spotify Wrapped. It was all Lady Gaga. Yes, I'm a big fan. If you excuse me, I'm just going to go lose myself on Planet Chromatica once again. But of course, if you disagree, please write in the comments, what are your best albums of the year? And what would you put in the different categories? I'd be interested to see, which albums you cried over the most, or which ones you consider the best songwriting. Let me know in the comments, and of course subscribe to the channel and like the video if you liked it. Thank you so much for tuning in to the end. Oh my god, I'm getting emotional now. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you soon. Bye. Before there was love, there was silence. I love that line.